Good morning. I'm Scott Lipke, the Executive Director of the Institute for Holocaust Education, and welcome to our monthly Lunch and Learn series. We're very excited today to have Hillary with us from the new Executive Director of the Samuel Bach Museum Learning Center. She'll speak about the UNO's vision for the future facility and hub for art and dialogue around art, Holocaust education, human rights, and genocide, as well as how to visit and engage with phase one of the exhibit, which has just opened this month. And I hope many of you had the opportunity a couple weeks ago to be at some of the opening events where also Mr. Bach did speak, and it was absolutely wonderful. And so I turn it over to Hillary, and I thank her very much for being with us today.
Thanks, Scott, and good afternoon. And if you're in Omaha, hope you're staying warm. Sure. Our snowy day. Let me go ahead and bring up a PowerPoint here. Just give me a moment. Here we go. Can everyone see that okay? Not yet, it's not on. Here we go. All right, well, today, thank you again for having me. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the Samuel Bach Museum, the Learning Center. As Scott said, we just opened up. Actually, tomorrow, Saturday, will be 2 weeks that we've been publicly open. So we're really in the first stages of opening, but excited to be a part of the University of Nebraska, Omaha, and of course, the Omaha community, especially the arts and culture scene. So we are located, just to give everyone an idea, at 2289 South 67th Street. For people who are in the Omaha area, this is the old backwoods in Art Zarbin Village, right next to Voodoo Taco. Just give you a landmark. It's a 5,200 square foot space. And like I said, we are open to the public, which is exciting. Not today, so because of the snow. So I want to talk a little bit first just about Sam. And Samuel Bach. If you've had the chance to meet him, you find yourself very lucky. He's an amazing human being. But I thought I'd give you a little bit of history to him and his life and how it affected his art before we go into a little bit of more information about the museum. So Sam was born in 1933. He's the son of Mitzia and Jonas Bach. And he was, of course, born to an educated, cultural, middle-class family in Vilna, Poland, now Vilnius, Lithuania. He was encouraged very early on to explore his artistic talent. His grandparents and his mom and his dad, everyone explored him all the time. So he was making art very early, or trying to, and reading and exploring. He, of course, born in 1933. In 1941, there was the Nazi occupation of Vilna, where he lived, and all Jews were ordered to wear the yellow Star of David. So here's a picture I was able to find of the Vilna ghetto, where Sam and his mom ultimately ended up. But in September of 1941, of course, the deportation of Jews to the Vilna ghetto began. His father, Jonas Bach, was sent to a labor camp, and Sam and his mother fled at that time from the ghetto to the home of Janina Rushkovich, I hope I'm saying that correctly, who was his grandfather's Christian sister. She found them shelter in the Vilna's Benedictine convent, where the nun Marija Milkuska takes Sam kind of under her wing at the time and really supplies him with paint and paper. When the Nazis eventually placed the convent under military jurisdiction, Sam and his mother had to return to the ghetto. So in 1943, in the Vilna ghetto, and this is a picture that I was able to find of the Jewish synagogue in Vilna at the time of the Nazi occupation. But in March, in the ghetto, the poets Avrom Sutzkever, and I'm sure I'm not saying that correctly, and Smerzy Kazurginsky invited Sam at the age of 9 to participate in an exhibition. It was his first kind of real exhibition, as he says himself. At the same time, they entrusted a document called the Pincus, which was the official record of the Jewish community, into kind of the hands of Sam, and hoped that both Sam would survive and the Pincus would survive. Sam used that Pincus. He used all the page margins and the empty pages that were left in the back for drawings. As a side note, Sam actually later loses the pincus as we go through his life story, but it is recovered decades later, and now it's on display in Vilnius in a museum, the Samuel Bach Museum, actually. So in 1943, Sam's father was sent to the forced labor camp HHKP 526, where Sam and his mother do join him upon the liquidation of the ghetto in September 24. In March, all of the children at the camp were rounded up and murdered in front of their parents and each other in the center square. Sam was concealed under a bed, Sam and one other child, actually. And his mother at the time took advantage to really flee. There was so much chaos, obviously. Days later, Sam is smuggled out in a backpack of sawdust in his dad's back. Janina Ruskovich, again, it was like Sam was handed off to a stranger who then got the backpack and Sam to Janina Ruskovich and his mother. She saves them again by getting them to the Benedictine Covenant, where they find shelter for about 11 months until liberation. It so happened too that in July of 1944, after that all of the Jewish forced laborers, and among them was Sam's father, Jonas Bach, they were rounded up and shot to death in Ponari, which was the forest located directly outside of Vilna. This was 10 days before the liberation of Vilna. Sam later finds out that his grandparents were also murdered in Ponari. After the liberation, Sam starts to take art lessons, uniquely enough, with Professor Serafinovic. He's a pre-war Polish citizen. The family has the right to return to Poland. They move to Lodz, and Bach again continues studying art. He starts to learn Impressionist art. That's really what was around at that time. That's what he's learning, and that's how he's starting to paint. Just a short year later, after a short time in Berlin, Sam and his mother arrive at the Landsberg Displaced Persons Camp. They're greeted by a survivor named Nathan Markowski. He holds a senior position at the camp, and later he actually becomes Sam's stepfather. Nathan lost his wife and 2 daughters also in the Holocaust, and so there was a real bond, obviously, with he and Sam's mother. But at the time where he's in this displaced persons camp, just 2 weeks ago when Sam was with us, he was saying, I didn't have things to do. I had a broken bike, so I would fix the bike, I would ride it, and it would break. And so he's like, the other thing for me to do was to paint. And so there was a US soldier's wife who shipped art supplies from New York that Sam ended up creating paintings. Also, after the being in the Landsberg Displaced Person Camp, Sam is sent to Munich for a little bit to study with Professor Blocher, who was a German expressionist, and he starts to visit city museums and really starts to learn again. This is this formal study of art for Sam. So over his lifetime, Sam has woven his Holocaust experience with his life story to create this iconography of modern history. And he explores profound questions about human nature. It's really about the injustices that have happened and the inequalities, but that hope can prevail. So if you've ever seen Sam's work, especially his most recent work, you'll know that the iconography and the symbolism is just outstanding, and it's humongous. There's a lot in each painting, and sometimes it can be overwhelming. And Sam really wants every visitor to come and look at his work and take their own individual experiences to that and then learn from it. And that's really his hope. He still paints today. He's working on anywhere from 100 to 150 paintings a day. He still has shows opening. In fact, this April, he'll be opening a show all about pears up in Boston, which is really exciting. So a little bit of history that many people probably already know who are on the call, that in 2019, Dr. Mark Selenzak, who's the executive director of the Freed Holocaust and Genocide Academy at UNO, had partnered with Pucker Gallery. The Pucker Gallery has represented Sam since 1969 for over 50 years, and they initiated an exhibition called Witness, the Art of Samuel Bach. This is also in partnership with the Nathan and Hannah Schwab Center for Israel and Jewish Studies, and it was hosted at UNO on campus, on the Dodge campus, in the School of Arts Gallery in the Weber Fine Arts Building for 3 months from September to November. If you came, or if you didn't, you can still find some of the catalog information online. It had over 70 works of art, nearly 5,000 visitors, 2,000 plus high school students who toured the exhibition, and a lovely arts and human rights symposium sponsored by the Goldstein Center and Freed Academy, which brought in scholars from all around the world to discuss many issues around art and human rights. And it afforded a lot of opportunities for our students and community members to become docents and really learn and explore Sam's work. Well, this was such a successful exhibition for UNO and the community, and everyone really responded to it well. That
We just do a launch party. We introduce people to our product, and that generates.
I don't know who that is, though.
There's 3 areas people can play ball with it. That is, they can like something.
Okay. And so that resulted in a gift of over 512 paintings that have spanned Sam's work as his career to UNO. Well, this was in 2019, so we have to fast forward to 2023. We obviously, a pandemic hit and a lot of things changed for everyone. And UNO, there was a lot of leadership change. We changed chancellors in the meantime as well. And so there was really a discussion of what would happen with Sam's work. How would this be a part of the university, and how it would be implemented throughout all of the colleges, units, and departments, and not just kind of single standing on its own. So I was hired just a mere 6 months ago, and there was a discussion to have a phase 1 or a temporary space where we could put up some of these works of arts for people to see. Of course, it's been a few years since 2019, and we wanted the opportunity to showcase his work and to also beta test programs and collaborations for what we think is the future vision of the Samuel Bach Museum, the Learning Center. So, as you already know, our space is over in Exarban Village, and it was backwoods, so it was a retail space. So for 3 months, we went through construction, and as you can see, we're getting ready, building a private classroom, building all of these walls in order to hang artwork. They all have to be backed from about 3 feet to 8 feet with plywood so that they can hang or hold the heavy hanging. And then some HVAC work had to be done, of course, just for humidity control for having art in the space 24/7. So in January, we were able to bring 99 works, and I actually hired staff. So until then, I had no staff. So the picture on the left of your screen are those nearly 100 works that were shipped from Boston, coming in on a not quite so snowy day as today, but still pretty windy. And on the right is our curator, Alexandra Cardone, who was just hired, and she started to uncrate the works. And as you can see a little bit, it's a little blurry, that these works are very different from what you may have seen in the Witness exhibition, or if you've seen Sam's work before. And here's some shots of installation happening. It took about 3.5 to 4 days to install the 53 works of art works that we have on display currently. So you can see all of the work that goes into installing at a museum. So back to, we are open to the public. We're obviously a piece of UNO, that we're not located directly on campus. We're open Wednesday through Sunday, mainly 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. On Thursdays, except for today, because it's a snow day, we're open till 6 p.m. And on Sundays, we're open noon to 4. We have reserved Mondays and Tuesdays specifically from public hours for university and community partnerships. As you'll see, I'll show you some of the space. We want to ensure that people have the opportunity to really utilize the space and have conversations and meetings and dialogue. And sometimes our classroom space is not enough, so we wanted to utilize the larger space, and that's why we're closed those 2 days to the public. So our first exhibition up is this inaugural exhibition, In the Beginning, The Artists of Samuel Bach. Of course, just opened February 4, and it will be on display until June 4. Important to note that the museum is free to the public and all ages are welcome. As we begin to kind of move forward in our life as a museum, we're starting to create different tours for different ages, scavenger hunts, and things that are appropriate for younger children. So here's our space. On the right side, you're looking right below the exit sign is the front door. You actually have to enter into 2285, which is the lobby space to Noddle companies to come into the museum. And so this is our largest space. It fits 75 people with chairs. We have 75 chairs, and you can put tables up as well for a very large kind of dialogue situation. on the left side of your screen is our classroom, which can fit anywhere from really 20 to 30, depending on how you arrange chairs and tables. And it's fully Zoom and computer projector screen outfitted, so it can allow for a lot of flexibility. Again, we really want both the university and community groups to use this space. So if you're a nonprofit or represent a nonprofit or a government agency, you can go to our website, boc.unomaha.edu, and you can go to the page that is about rental and meeting space. And there's this email here, UNO BOC reservations. You can email, and there's a little bit of process to reserve it for a date and time. So we currently have this great exhibition out and open hours. We have tours every day, which is really exciting, but we're starting to focus on our middle and high school outreach as well. For this first kind of middle of semester for us, since we opened in February, we're really focusing on teacher engagement and focus groups. We're going to be holding a series of focus groups throughout April for educators to come and to really discuss what they need from us as a museum. We have some great research that was done in 2019, but again, a pandemic has hit and things have changed, and we want to make sure that we're complementing everything that our educators in the area need. We'll also be developing all of the secondary kind of grade level materials in multiple languages, English, Spanish, and Korean, to be prepared to do outreach and full middle high school tours next fall in 2023. It's not to say we won't offer a tour to a high school group right now. We absolutely will, but we're focusing on making sure all of things are in proper place for fall. We also have a lot of programs that will be pushing out March, April, May for people to come. So from lectures to dialogues, showing some films, and again, daily tours, which are really exciting. We'll have a series of lunch and learns. We'll make sure not to set it on this date, Scott, so we don't overlap, of course, where we'll be bringing out some pieces of the collection that aren't on display for people to explore and kind of see a first peek and have a conversation with our curator. And of course, we're already working on lots of community programming, including with the Institute for Holocaust Education. So I'd like to give an example of what it looks like when our students came in. We were really blessed that the day before we opened, we had 25 students from Buena Vista High School come to the space. They were actually off school, so kudos to their instructor, Carissa Stowe, as well as every student who came. They were so excited. They came to the museum. They spent some time exploring the exhibition. They had some personalized tours with a curator and myself, and then a sheet to fill out. And then they got an hour conversation with Samuel Bach, who you see on the left of your screen, and Bernie Pucker, who is both on the bottom left and the bottom right. It was a great conversation. Students were so excited to be there. And of course, who wouldn't be to get some time with Sam? And it's exactly what we at the Samuel Bach Museum want to do on a daily basis. What we ended up doing after they had their time with Sam and Bernie and exploring the exhibition, we ended up busing them to our campus. They had lunch on campus at the White CEC building, and then they were able to explore the Undesigned, the Redline exhibition that is currently on display at the White CEC building, which is about redlining in Omaha. And we then took them over to the Weber Gallery, which has a exhibition called Nobody's Listening, which is about Yazidi genocide. So these students had a really full day. We've already received emails and letters of how impactful it was for them. It was heavy content, but it was really what we want to see in terms of this conversation dialogue around social justice and human rights, and how they can look at three very different exhibitions or three very different experiences and bring them together to have that common conversation. So beyond phase one, UNO is looking to a phase two. We'll be creating a permanent facility that really serves as this hub for intercultural dialogue. That facility will be on one of the campuses. We have footprints on both spaces, but yet to be announced where it will be. And it'll really be a space of collaboration and opportunities, not only for students, faculty, and staff, but for the community abroad, where art really does become that genesis to the conversation around Holocaust, education, human rights, genocide, social justice, all of those things. That's really what we want to focus on. And that's really where we want our students to focus. We know that these opportunities of engagement will better prepare them. They'll help give them a sense of purpose, civic responsibility, critical thinking, inclusivity, and cultural awareness, of course. That new building will house what we will title the Samuel Bach Museum, which is the permanent collection of the 512 plus pieces. It will also house temporary exhibition space, which is will allow us to bring in other artists into the conversation and other opportunities to look at art separate of Sam's. It will house the Sam and Francis Freed Holocaust and Genocide Academy, our Leonard and Shirley Goldstein Center for Human Rights, the Schwab Center for Israel and Jewish Studies, as well as our entire DEI unit at the university. And I always say lots of classroom and gathering spaces because we haven't quite gone through that design process. We hope to enter into a design program statement process towards the end of summer, early fall of 2023. So I wanted to show you just 3 works today. I'm not going to show you everything from the collection, though I have a great video at the end. But just 3 works to kind of tempt you to hopefully come to the museum and see the space. And this first one is probably one of my favorites. It's called My First. Sam painted it in 1946. He was 14 years old. It was his first oil on linen painting. And again, it's one of his very first paintings. He was so young when he painted this. And really this work, which I just love, represents this kind of young artist fascinated with the history of modern art, right? You can see all these bold greens and yellows and kind of dabs and smudges as and streaks that he's creating a composition filled with light and texture. All of these early works that if you come to the exhibition and you see are really a testament to Sam's mom and her faith in his art. He always says though that she would say, "You're not that special." all Jewish moms tell their kids they're special. "You're not that special. Just keep trying really hard." He's said that to me so many times, which I smirk a little bit about, but she really did believe in him and knew how powerful his work was even at a young age. And so she carried these works from Europe, on a boat to Israel and preserved them. They're in amazing condition, even though she didn't quite know where their future lied. So this is called My First. The next piece I'd like to focus on is called Refugees. And again, this was painted very early on in Sam's life in 1948. It's a watercolor. Again, Scott and I were talking pre the start of the session about how he'd kind of seen, I think, one of these paintings, or he had been to our opening and seen a few of these. And they're so different from what we see Sam as an artist painting the majority of his life, and most certainly today. But this piece is really one of Sam's first attempts to kind of probe that subject of displacement. And it demonstrates how Sam's exploration of modern art has emerged a little bit more intuitively than maybe the formal art, more impressionism that he started to learn at an early age. So in this piece, we see these forms of these people who, are titled refugees, and they're really reduced, and the space is created through a lot of color. There's broad and forceful brushstrokes established, figures kind of held together. But what I love most is that they have these kind of solemn expressions, and he's used obviously either watercolor and or some charcoal on that to really express that piece of it. So again, this is kind of Sam starting to move away from traditional art that he's seen, impressionism that he saw at a young age and was exposed to, and start to process what has happened in his own life. And then last, I like to show this piece. It's also one of my favorites in the collection we have out today. This is titled Adam and Eve and the Good Old Times. So Sam has an entire series called Adam and Eve. So we have one of the catalogs at the museum. Happy to share with anyone to take a look. And he really uses the pair, Adam and Eve, and this couple that we see as he's representing Adam and Eve. And he's saying that they've really, in this painting, have outlived their biblical origins and are transplanted to a more modern world, of course. They're dressed in their pre-war finery. They are blindly advancing through a destroyed world. You might note, if you can get close enough to your screen, that their eyes are closed. You don't see their eyeballs in this painting. And they are very unaware because of that, of the ledge that they are about to step off of. Their human selves are turning into stone and matching their surroundings. There is an ominous cloud of smoke. I'm pointing to it like you can see it, but to the back right of the painting that rises behind them. And the title is really an ironic piece for the couple because it's about the denial of the reality that their wealth and their social rank that ensured them good times in the pre-war years will not protect them from the Nazi violence that they're about to experience. So this is traditionally what we would say is a Sam Bach painting if you've done any research on him as an artist, and it's really symbolizing a lot. And maybe when you take your first glance, you don't quite know what you're looking at, and you have to explore it a little bit more. And then again and again. So last, I'd like to show you just a quick video of the space that will hopefully tempt you to come by. And I have to make sure the sound's on. So we'll just. There we go. And that's all I have for today.
Thank you. I want to open it up to questions. I'm going to ask the first, though. When Bob paints, and I know very little of art, I just love looking at it and trying to understand it. Does he make a sketch and then work? I mean, how does he begin his work? Because they're so detail oriented, and there's just so, every time you see one of his pieces, you notice something that you didn't notice the time before.
Absolutely. So that's an interesting question, Scott. So I always like to give a disclosure. I'm actually not an art historian. I have a museum studies background, but always on the administrative side. So I also like to look at art and learn, just like you, though I've, of course, done some more in-depth studies of Sam's work. I asked the same question a couple of months ago. I was in his studio, and I had just gone to the Museum of Fine Arts, where they've recently acquired, I think about 9 months ago, so it's not so recent now, maybe even quite a year ago, a painting from Sam called it's called To the Ghetto. And I had seen this, and it's the painting is a Star of David, but then it's deep down and then has what you would what I was assuming was the ghetto inside it anyway. And so then I went to Sam's studio right after that for the first time, and I saw like 15 little like 3x3s. The painting's a huge piece acquired by the museum, but like 3x3 feet, small canvases in a row. And I thought, oh, these must be his studies. So that Sam does a study pre the big piece, but no, it's the other way. Sam actually paints his first painting first, and then he bases studies after the first. So all of these works that we see, he generally is just starting painting. He told me he doesn't do a lot of sketching. I'm not sure that he doesn't do any sketching, but he doesn't do a lot. And he starts, in some of the works, when you come to the museum or if you've looked through a catalog, Sam's works can like span 4 to 6 years. Some of those big pieces, like the Creation of Wartime 3, that was in one of the backdrops that I showed, and it was certainly in the video. I mean, that's a humongous piece with so much detail. It took him, takes him years to paint because so much detail. So he's absolutely not sketching first. He's really just painting and repainting a little bit on the canvas, I'm sure, adding and subtracting, and then getting to a study afterwards, which is kind of opposite from what we hear other artists are doing.
We have a question. Dana asked if other school districts outside of Omaha are being made aware of Bach.
Yes, yes, they are. So note, we have not done outreach to any of the schools yet because we're in this kind of planning phase to get ready for fall. But yes, we'll be outreaching across the whole state. It's my job to better understand where Holocaust education, and that's where I hope Scott will help me greatly, where that falls in curriculum across the state. I think we all probably have a better understanding of that regionally or metro-wise, but across the state, especially at the passing of LB 988, where the museum really, where we can really fall as a resource for schools. But yes, we will be reaching out as far, and we hope to acquire bus money and substitute money through private philanthropic dollars. We've already started to receive some of those, and we'll continue, of course. That will help subsidize that so we can get students beyond Omaha to the museum.
And just so that people know, next week we're actually meeting, and that's actually part of what I want to talk about.
Yes,
but because we're also extremely excited with what this what doors this can open. Other questions?
I was going to say, I always like to say, Scott and I met week 2, literally, and I had nothing to show him. I'm like, I'm not sure what we're going to talk about. And then now we're 2 weeks into a museum opening. So we're always meeting right when, I don't have a lot of information.
Could you tell us where the location exactly is located so that anybody who wants to come see it?
So it's 2289 South 67th Street. So if you're taking 67th, maybe we'll say north and south from Central to Center, to Pacific, going from Center north to Pacific. We're right on the east side or the right side if you were driving, right next to Voodoo Taco. We're a storefront. You enter through 2289. What did I said 2289, you enter through 2285, I had to think, which is the door right to the left of us. It's just a lobby door. And that's how you get into the museum, because our front doors are just big display windows right now.
And there's plenty of parking.
Yes, both on the front and back, or the east and west side. So much parking. There's a huge parking garage on the back side or the east side of the building. You can enter through those lobby doors as well. And then of course, throughout all of Exarban Village, a lot of parking.
So when you first became aware of Bach and in this position, his work, what hit you first in his paintings?
I don't know that I've ever been asked that. Well, definitely, I think the symbolism, but actually the positivity. I think when I first started to research Sam's work, I was doing that when I was in the job search, of course, to understand a little bit more before I moved forward. And I think initially I thought, wow, this can be really dark, which it can be really dark and heavy. In fact, and I've had conversations with people that have said the same, like, oh, I don't necessarily like Sam's work. It's so dark, but there's actually so much positivity and hope built into many of his works. And so it's, to me, the really interesting piece is digging in and understanding that symbolism that Sam himself will sometimes say, there's a lot more symbolism, that other people see that he didn't even think of. So in December, I was lucky enough to see this show that had opened up in Boston around, it's called Icons of Alone, but around a Star of David and Ghetto series that he had painted. And I was sitting there and he was speaking, and Bernie Pucker, who has represented him for over 50 years, I would say knows as much about Sam as Sam knows about himself probably at times. I mean, just Bernie really understands Sam's work. And then the chief curator of European art, Frederick Ullman from the Museum of Fine Arts, and then Dr. Mark Selenzak was also sitting there here from UNO. And they were talking about a painting, and all three of them, Bernie, Mark, and Frederick, said something different from their different perspectives of Bernie knowing Sam, Mark from a cultural historian standpoint, and then Frederick from an art historian standpoint. And it got to the point where Sam said, I don't know that I thought all of that when I painted the painting, and so for me, it really said, okay, sometimes we're all seeing stuff, but that's the point. We can see more into it and we can take as much as we want out of it. But definitely, I love Sam's symbolism and I love the positivity of it. And I absolutely love our first show. So I hope everyone will make time to come see it. Again, there's so many works that Sam picked that have never been seen by the public, that were done at a very, very early age, 13, 14 years old. And they're really stunning, and they're a very different piece to understanding him as an artist.
Amazing. Sarah has a question about what can we do as a community to support you and the museum?
Thanks for that question, Sarah. So of course, we want you to come and visit and explore the museum. If you are interested in volunteering, we have a section on our website, bach.unomaha.edu. You can learn to volunteer. We'll be having people who will help be community docents, not just student docents, but community docents, to be a part of tours for the future, not this current show. And then also, if you'd like to support us financially, there's a space there to make a donation and help with our phase 1 operational costs, which are really just costs around education and helping to get students into the space, and some of our educational marketing costs. All the rest of the operational costs are funded by UNO, but then we will be looking for support of our phase 2 as we get farther down that process for a complete building on campus.
And I'd like to put a plug out for the docent training. I went through it last when it was in the first part, and I learned so much about Sam and about just his works that it was an added bonus.
Yeah, So, and we will get those on our website. So from the Saturday that you just saw, and we have lots of conversations we recorded with him. They're just all being processed right now because it's only 2 weeks out. So we'll have some of those links and access as well. I don't know that I did say this. We have a 15-stop audio tour. So there's 53 works. You can come and do a tour in person, but we do have a 15-stop audio tour. It'll be available in Spanish starting March 1. Right now it's just in English. You can also hear the very first introduction on our website. You can't hear the entire 15 stop, but you can hear the first piece, which is really beautiful and gives you a little bit of insight to the exhibition.
And we have a question about when the scavenger hunt for younger children will be, when that's going to be open and happening.
Yeah, that's a great question. Tomorrow we're testing it out actually for the first time. So it was just developed on Sunday and we're testing tomorrow. So I imagine if it goes well, we might have a few modifications, but definitely by March 1st, if not the week before.
Wonderful. Other questions? Well, I want to thank you very much. I'm very, very excited about what's going to be happening, and the on our end, the ability to work together. It's very exciting, and this is just like a great opportunity to keep building a really strong community, and especially as we move forward with LB 888, which is a legislation that passed last year. That's very general. It just says teach Holocaust education, teach the Holocaust and other genocide. And now it's going to be our opportunity to implement in all different ways.
That's right. Well, thank you again for your time and for everyone. And if you have questions, again, you can go to our website, bach.unomaha.edu. There's access to me, our curator, all of our staff that you can email or call if you have any questions.
Thank you. And I just want to let everyone know that with all of our Lunch and Learns, we do record them, and they're up on the Jewish Federation of Omaha's YouTube page, or you can find links directly on our website, IHE.org, and this one will be up in about 4 or 5 days. Thank you all for being here, and we look forward to seeing you in March on the exact date. Today was the 16th, so March 16th. When we are actually looking at, we have a representative from the Anne Frank Center that we work with out of South Carolina, and continuing with the work that we're doing with them. So I hope you will be there. Also, in case you're interested, the Westside Middle School Westside Mid School right now, the Anne Frank exhibit, they were just trained the other day, and the community event is on the 9th of March. And our high school experience was amazing, and the middle school is amazing, and we just are really happy about what's happening with this educational programs. Thank you all for being here.